Let's go to one more place and see another king who God has set up. This is King Darius. Go a couple chapters over in the book of Daniel. Turn the page over a couple of chapters. And let's go over to Daniel, the 6th chapter. Now, this chapter talks about Daniel being in the lion's den. Darius, the Mede, after the kingdom was taken from the Babylonians, then you look in history in the Bible, you see the Medo-Persian kingdom took over, and Darius the Mede was sitting on the throne. We don't want to go through the whole story. I'm sure you're familiar with the story, but Daniel, the advisors of Nebuchadnezzar, were jealous of Daniel, and what they did is that they tricked they tricked Darius into signing a decree that no man. Actually, let's read this. It's saying that a man was going to be cast into a lion's den if, let's read this in Daniel, the 6th chapter. Daniel 6 verse 5. These men were looking to find fault in Daniel, and they couldn't. Daniel 6 and 5. And then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said to him, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, the princes, the counselors, the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save thee, O king, he shall be cast into a den of lions. So the king of the Medo-Persians, Darius, actually signed it and sealed it and left it at that. But they knew that Daniel was a just man, and Daniel prayed daily, and they used this decree of the king. They tricked him into signing this decree, so they wanted to get Daniel caught up in disobeying the law of the land, so they can actually get him thrown into a den of lions, so they can get rid of his position, so they can find favor again with the king. And we know, according to the story, that Daniel was cast into the lion's den once the king found out. But the king wasn't comfortable with that, but he couldn't go back on his word. Let's look at verse 18. Let's skip down just for time's sake. Verse 18, Daniel 6 and 18. So Daniel was already cast into the lion's den. Then the king went into his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments and music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. So he fasted the night. He couldn't even sleep because he was worried about Daniel. But he couldn't go back on his word after he signed that decree. He was hoping that Daniel's God would save Daniel from the lion's den. Look at verse 19. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. Verse 20. When he came into the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said unto Daniel, now check this out. O Daniel, servant of the living God, is your God, whom you service continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? So Darius knew that Daniel's God was a living God. Look at verse 21. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. Well, since Daniel spoke to him, that answers the question, but let's look further. Verse 22. My God has sent his angel and has shut up the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me, for as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. So Daniel basically told the king that the Most High God sent his angel to protect him. And Daniel was letting him know, hey, I was innocent before the eyes of God. And king, I didn't do any wrong before you either. I'm innocent before you as well. Because I have to serve my God on a daily basis. And check it out. Verse 23. Then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take up Daniel out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, no matter if hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. Which is a good lesson for us in this day, that no matter what, that we serve our God will take care of us. Verse 24 shows that the king commanded that those wicked counselors and their family be thrown into the lion's den. And you read that, you'll see that the lions basically broke their bones as soon as they got into the pit, before they even came down to the bottom. But this is the point that I wanted to get at, the meat of it, in verses 25 and 26. Now let's see how King Darius praised the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob after this. Verse 25, Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwelt in all the earth, Peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before who? Before Baal? No, before the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. So Darius knew who the living God was, the creator and maker, the one who, from Genesis to Revelation, Darius knew who this God was. And Darius had respect unto this God. Does that make Darius the Mede an Israelite? Well, of course not, because his title is Darius the Mede. He was not an Israelite, but he respected and feared the God of Daniel. So again, we have two instances of non-Israelites, at least from this particular lesson, Darius and King Nebuchadnezzar, who feared the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and had respect unto him, but that didn't make them Israelites by proxy. It didn't make them Israelites by default. So neither would that make Cornelius in Acts chapter 10 an Israelite by proxy or an Israelite by default. So I'm still waiting for the scriptures to show how Cornelius automatically is an Israelite. If we just read two examples here, and there's plenty of others in the scripture. There's plenty of others in the scripture of non-Israelites who knew the God was the God of gods. Well, I'm just pointing out these two here just for time's sake. We know for a fact that these two men were not of the natural seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They were not Jacob's children. Yet again, they feared and respected the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Daniel. That didn't make them Israelites. And that doesn't make Cornelius an Israelite automatically. And I want to close this lesson out with a couple more scriptures. Let's see what God says about himself. Jeremiah 32, verse 27. Jeremiah 32, verse 27. It says, Behold, this is the Most High speaking, Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me? God is a God of all flesh. Yes, he's a God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but he's still the Lord of all flesh. He's the one that created all flesh from Adam and from Eve. He's a God of the entire creation because he created everything. Everything belongs to him. He's a God of all flesh, including the Gentiles who are not Israelites. And Paul backs this up in Romans, the 2nd chapter, verse 11. We read this before in the previous lesson, but let's go ahead and read it again just to hammer it home. Romans 2, verse 11. For there is no respect of persons with God. God is not a respecter of persons. God is not a respecter of persons. And Peter himself verified this. This will be our last scripture, Acts the 10th chapter, which we read before in another lesson. And we broke it down thoroughly, but let's go ahead and read it again, just for edification's sake. And this is Peter, the one who dealt with Cornelius, the Gentile, the non-Israelite. This is what Peter said in Acts the 10th chapter. Acts 10:34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, Of a truth, I perceive that God is no respecter of persons. The exact same thing Paul said in Romans. Two witnesses. God is not a respecter of persons. 35 is a kicker. But in every nation, he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. Case closed. Thank you for listening, brothers and sisters. Grace and peace to you. Shalom.